Well, hello everybody. My name's Colleen Wynia, and I'm a spiritual intuitive, reset your vibe energy coach, breathwork facilitator, and my journey did not begin like that. I grew up in a sort of like a average home setting. We didn't have a lot of money. My family was kind of closed off emotionally, kind of a lot actually.
Mhm.
And who was birthed through them was this highly sensitive, emotional, empathic daughter.
Mm.
And I lived through that challenge of never really feeling seen, understood, and heard. Like many of us deemed light workers and psychic channelers and so forth. So I channel, but I channel for the purpose of healing. But back in the day, I led a sort of a normal life in as a child, but just feeling out of the wind. And what happened is I went when I was in my teenage years, Ellie, I was always massaging humans. My
Love
hands
it.
just went to people. Probably when I was a kid, I have no idea. But I just one day I woke up and I just remember I was always my hands were on people's shoulders. People came to me to
Mm.
talk about their feelings. They told me things they didn't tell other people. And so as I grew up, though, I did the thing, the thing of like you go to school and you get a job, and we didn't have enough money for me to go to university, so I graduated in June, and I started a job after three interviews in July. Literally less than a month of graduation. This girl's got her full-time job in addition to all the part-time jobs. Why I bring that up is because it launched me right into doing what everybody else was doing.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was grateful and I thought that was the way, but I was always trying to fit in,
Mm.
meaning I didn't feel good enough,
Hmm.
didn't feel worthy, didn't feel seen. So much so that this soul chooses to work in a very male dominant energy industry. But yeah, so I worked in the corporate world for 11 and a half years and right in administration. And I created my own job descriptions and I went up the ladder because I was going to be a lumber trader. Yep, that's what you did. There was only one or two women, but no, this girl's going to be a lumber trader. Okay, well, that's lovely. Eventually I was. Um, However, along the way of fitting in and trying to, mask my pain, I'd always dealt with a lifelong, some depression along with not feeling fit in. So this is really hard. I was never really happy. And people thought I was happy on the outside, but I wasn't. So I bring that beginning up, which I actually haven't detailed that beginning very often,
Mm.
in that respect, because we're holding on to pain. Who has held a
Mhm.
lifetime of pain, right?
Yeah.
All of us who are doing this work.
Hmm.
But here's the opening. Here's where the transition. How did I get into the work, you asked me? Well, what floored me into it,
Mm.
blindsided, eventually was blindsided. What happened is I was actually in my 20s, and my dad and my cousin were both diagnosed with cancer. Rob was first diagnosed, he was 25. He had had this growth on his neck, and it was growing and growing and growing. And interestingly enough, at that very time, we were all living together, him and I and our aunt, who was like our big sister.
Mm.
Who'd have thought at the specific timing he discovers he has cancer, we're actually the three closest people in the whole family. Three Musketeers were actually residing within the same household. It was very interesting after
Mm.
breakup.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And he didn't want to go to the doctor, and this growth grew and grew and grew. Anyways, he finds out he has cancer. It's very well developed within him. And then soon thereafter, my dad finds out he has cancer.
Wow. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
It was a really big, as loss, eventually was loss, but anytime that scare, so much fear,
Yes.
so much fear. And all I wanted to do is that healing in me. Remember, I said I've always touched people with these healing hands, and they came and talked to me as coaching and counseling. I just wanted to help them. I wanted to help them. So I started looking for those natural solutions. I came across a story of this beautiful man who had throat cancer, which my dad had. And he had gotten onto the Master Cleanse, which is like lemon and cayenne pepper and maple syrup and water and 28 days, no food, just a Master Cleanse. So I'm like, oh my God, this was pre-internet, right? So I got a little piece of paper and some information. Dad mailing it off to his house. Look what I found, you know? Anyways, to move forward, these two gentlemen, my closest boys at the time, they just went kind of the traditional route, and the doctor, chemotherapy, radiation. They both transitioned within 9 months of each other.
Wow.
Yeah. Devastating. My first real
Yes.
losses.
Oh my
Absolutely didn't know
gosh,
what
I'm
to
so
do.
sorry.
I crying every day.
Mm.
Like, I'm already a kind of a depressed child woman.
Oh,
Now I'm crying every day. I literally thought my life was coming apart, and everything was all to do with them. Loss after loss. There were many loved ones that came after. My sister, my cousin, my auntie,
wow.
my past boyfriend, oh, just the list is so long. Um, so what
Wow.
ended up transmitting is, while I was, well, we'll just say once they transitioned, let's move forward. Once they transitioned and they were in spirit now, I'm grieving initially. And so was my auntie, who was on
Mm.
the bedside of Rob when he
Mm.
transitioned. The three of us were together again, by the way, Ellie. The three of
Oh,
us were together again in the hospital. I
that's
mean, he
beautiful.
was singing and I was holding space and healing,
Mm.
and he left his body. And I knew in that moment, that was my very first person I saw who transitioned in front of my eyes. My
Mm.
dad, I had just seen him, but then I left the hospital, and I was, back in another city. But when he actually left, transitioned, meaning he passed away. But with Rob, I saw him leave his body, and I knew that was my first sign. I was like, I always wondered, what happens when you die?
Mm.
I had that my whole life. What happens when you die? It wasn't a scary thought for me. No, it
Yeah,
was just,
yeah.
you know,
Curiosity. Yeah.
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 So getting into when they transitioned, I started to have these experiences that was out of this world for me. New,
Mm.
new. And that was the
Hello.
hello now. We're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I can certainly can share. I've got some
Yes.
incredible like stories, but
Yes, I know
that was
you
the first.
do. Please. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me preface it first. You had asked me, like, how did I get into this? It's like that's how I got into
Yeah.
it. And how does what I'd love to viewers and people to hear is like, we're going to talk about the point. I'm going to share with you those fun signs, but like people ask me, like, how can I live a happier life? How
Mm.
can I overcome grief? How can I work with my suffering? How can I trust myself more? The biggest challenge we all have, whether we're growing our mediumship abilities, are living a better life, listening to our body for what its messages are, is our
Mm.
intuition,
Hmm.
right? So we
Yeah.
want to make sure. I love sharing the stories. That's what draws people to me. But how can that help you?
Yes.
Well, that's because over the years, I've started to take those experiences and help people move into healing their body, their mind, and getting them back into their highest purpose each and every day. But yeah, I'd love to share the stories. Let's do that.
Yes, yes, please. Yeah, yeah. Share away. Tell I know one in particular I heard you bring up was your bedside table. So definitely share that, but anything else that you think is cool and fascinating that the
Yeah,
audience might just be like, "Oh." Or
I
they
am
may even have experienced very similar things.
sure they have.
Yeah.
I have this blog on my website, colleenwynia.com. And there's this blog that I created in 2013, and it's just one blog back in the day where I took a picture of the moving object. Moving objects is one of the ways they love to show their sign, the signs. But it was a moving object on my, it wasn't the picture of the bedside table, but it was a picture of this friends, circle of friends ornament, and it was sitting on a big old fashioned, those speakers. Remember those the stereo speakers, those big ass speakers? And they
Yeah.
got this stand. Well, on the bottom on the ground, there's this metal piece like this, and the circle of friends, which is heavy, was sitting basically on the ground on my carpet almost like, but on the base of the speaker.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And one day I walk in the living room, and I'm living alone at the time, or my boyfriend wasn't around. And I walk in, and the circle of friends is tipped on its side.
Wow.
And the little words love, I had these little, sometimes you sprinkle things into presents. You open up like a present,
Yes.
and there's these like
Yeah. Like
sprinkles
confetti
or,
almost, or
yeah, confetti, words, happy birthday. Well, I had
yes.
these little love words, and the loves were sitting inside the circle of friends, which is a candle in the middle. And it was flipped on the side. The circle of friends is all these humans on the outside, and it's all these love around the carpet. But that blog, I wrote it in 2013, and people just find it on the internet. They're all sharing their spirit stories. And then I have one from Rob though, and one from Dad as well that I'd love to share.
Yes.
See who relates. So the bedside table, you asked about that one. So that started with my dad. My dad, many years before this particular, there's many of these stories, but for 25 years, he has moved things on my side table.
Mm. 25
At
years.
least, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not as active doing it now. Not like it's not, I mean, his spirit's he's doing other things. He doesn't need to capture my attention all the time because I can feel him.
Yes.
But in the beginning, it seemed to be over and over. And every once in a while, our spirit loved ones, like the more we're tuned in, the more we get familiar with when they're there for us, or when we call them, we can speak to them anytime, you guys. You absolutely don't have to. I can help you with that. That's what we do when we connect. I help you
Mhm.
learn how to work with the signs. I help you connect with your loved ones who recognize the signs and all that. But on the side table, one of the ones recently, about 5, 6 years ago, was so cool. So my bedside table has this. I happen to have it with me
I'm
because
so excited.
I couldn't find the other symbol because I packed it away. It's like 25 years ago. This one's more recent. So this happens to my clients and my friends all the time, but because they feel comfortable now telling me things, right? The
Oh,
more that they
right.
do their healing, yeah. So if you can see this, I'll hold this for. I'm going to be really careful. What this is a vase, obviously, or it's a glass vase. It's really heavy. It's filled with stones and crystals, and actually, right on top there is a horseshoe, brass horseshoe, which was from my dad.
Mm.
So kind of a little memorabilia thing sitting in here. And it sits in my living room now, but it was on my side table, and it's a heart shape. Again, I can't quite show it to you because it will
Yeah,
fall over.
no. Yeah, I can.
But basically it was positioned on the left upper corner of the side table, so when you kind of come in, it has oh, our loved ones communicate with us in ways that we will recognize. Right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's one of the teachings. So
Yes.
if Ellie, if you were someone who is not organized and your house was one big messy place,
I can
or you
imagine.
don't notice if something was out of place,
Mm,
spirit will not go to you to connect with you. Your loved ones will not connect with you that way.
that
They're
makes
not going to get your attention.
yeah. Right.
But if you're like me or my mom, whose things, got a place, you'll notice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's one of the teachings there, you guys,
I
right?
love
So
that.
They're going to connect with you in a way that you will recognize them. But anyways, yeah. So one day this just kept moving. Like either first off, rather than I'm going to put it down, but I can talk with my hands a little bit better. But if you're at the if it's at a corner, sort of a
Hmm.
corner of the desk, and it's like right in the corner, it started moving towards the closer to the front when you walk towards the table, and off the edge. Like
Wow.
really crazy stuff. And then how dad started this years ago was I used to have a picture frame and it had a poem in it. And it still does. Actually, it's the same one. And it sits, in a nice position on the desk, kind of like, and then it would turn and turn and turn and turn. He literally one day would be like turned a little bit, turned so that if you're laying in
Wow.
bed and you were to look at your side table, you could read the poem.
Wow.
Yeah.
How sweet is that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And all the little stones, I used to have little stones around some candles or something like I say stones or crystals. And one time he kept turning this black, I'm just gonna call it a stone or a rock right now because I can't remember which one it's called. But it was positioned in a way, and he was always moving them around. And one day I walked in and I was like, oh, I never thought of that. He took
Mhm.
that little rock and he turned it upside down on a way that it was sitting, that it just looked completely like a different shaped rock.
Interesting.
Like crazy stuff, right? So that was really cool. So at first I was like, okay, well, these signs they start to happen, and they happen to you, they happen once. No, maybe it's my mind, maybe I'm making it
Mhm.
up, maybe I did. So let me explain with this story. But I'll explain the detail of the benefit of it. But the neat thing is they play with you because it helps lift the grief. It helps give us a
Mhm.
connection back with them. It helps us give that little bit of, joy back in our heart. Like we want to come back to heart coherence in
Yes.
order to be open to love again, relationships, to move forward. We're in our grief. We're just like, lock me up, right? Well,
Mhm.
when they do these things, they're going, come on, Colleen, get going. We're here with you. Don't have to be so depressed. I can see my dad going, it's gonna be all fine. It's gonna be all okay. Remember how I said it takes time for our intuition to trust ourselves?
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Right? To
Yes.
trust making
Yes.
decisions for our business, to trust our relationships. Isn't about trusting our partners. Is
That's
he
right.
trustable? Is she trustable? Can I be myself? No. How much do we trust ourselves, right? So spirit, our loved ones help us trust ourselves so we can, work with that unworthiness stuff and that low confidence and shift those gears around. So that's what they've helped me do. That's what they help you do. Okay. So this one's so cool. When Rob first transitioned, I will never forget. There were two major signs, many other ones. But the first one was actually he did the moving object sign.
Mm.
Moving objects is one of the ways they show you. We just talked about that. So he did one moving object where a rear view mirror in the car, and I'm in my little Honda, and I'm at a driveway, and I get up every morning to go to work to the lumber trading company, sell lumber. And
I
I'm
love it.
get
I get it. I was in construction before actually diving into this. So I'm right there with you, Colleen.
one of the ways he connected was through moving objects,
Mm.
like my dad. And that's how he first showed his presence to me, or at least how I first took it. I
Uh-huh.
was driving out of my little Honda, going back to the lumber days, and the rear view mirror was normally you could see where I was driving down the driveway, and the rear view mirror was tipped, so it's like tipped.
Hmm.
And I had to put it back so I could see out the window. And the next morning, I went to sleep, got up for my 6:30 a.m. start, and not a morning person. And it was turned again. A few mornings in a row, it was turned. And then finally it just clicked on me.
Mm.
I kept thinking, you should have seen me. I had my sport bag and I was pulling out of the car, wondering if I could hit the mirror. I was trying to decipher how it happened.
Yes.
So, how our loved ones will show up is like you will notice them maybe through their personality. So that's one of the signs. So that's, there you go, guys. Feel into the personality. Because if you're saying, well, I feel a spirit, I feel a sense, I feel like there's some, what's the message is coming through to help me? Well, what's this feeling of the spirit? Call in the feeling. And my feeling was this electricity. So Rob, my Rob, loves to communicate through electrical means, flashing lights, computers, clock radios,
Oh, cool.
222. See what I'm saying, guys?
Oh, that
So
makes sense.
this is when I became a believer, when
Mm,
I'm questioning, without a doubt.
mm,
I wake up one morning to the clock radio. That's why I was looking for my clock. It sits on my side table and it woke up to the 95.3 FM clock radio. 95.3 FM radio station, sorry. I was always to some music, hopefully. Well,
mm,
one morning I wake up to go to my lumber job and it's loud. So I wake up, I'm living alone, I was sleeping alone. Um, I didn't think I bumped the volume button, but that's the first place we go. Did I turn the volume button up? I guess I hit the volume button. No clue. Not thinking about Rob whatsoever. But morning two, it repeats, right?
mm,
So there's a sign when you see things happening that are repeated. Well, so Rob repeats it next morning, it's loud again, and my brain starts to, I'm feeling something, but I'm not quite making sense of it. But I'm curious now. I'm just, okay, something's got my attention. I kind of think I had these signs before. Yep, the moving rear view mirror. Yep. Some side table action, right? Oh, so third morning, fourth morning, each day I turn the volume down. Okay, so I did turn it down. It was up. 1, 2, 3. And I'm starting to feel like, oh my gosh, this feels like Rob.
mm,
It's a knowingness. How you're going to sense our loved ones also relates to how you're built, how you're designed
mm.
with the clairs, say clairaudient, voyant, seeing. I'm not so much a clairvoyant. I'm like clairsentient and I'm claircognizant. Like I'm all knowing. It just like a download. Let's download that program for your computer. Whoop, there you go. So it just comes in, it fills up my body. And on the fourth morning, when I wake up, not only is the volume loud, it's on a completely different radio station,
Wow.
a completely different, what is that? Frequency.
Mm, mm.
Frequency. Plays with the frequency because we're energy beings and everything's energy. I know,
I
rad,
love
huh?
it.
Pretty cool. I wake up, my whole body just floods with energy. I'm like, okay, I'm a believer. Cool.
I literally am covered in goosebumps. That's so funny. So was the station that it was turned to, was it more like upbeat? Or you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, was there a
big
difference in
difference.
that?
I never forget this part. That's so funny. I didn't. Not only was it a different radio station, it was a Chinese radio station. like, like I don't want to wreck the language because I'm, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but to my ears, it was like, no, 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 no. Like I didn't understand because I don't know the language. I didn't know a thing. That's Rob. Humorous. What they do then is then after that, what can happen is that interest that starts to lift my energy a little bit, gets me a little bit brighter each day. These signs are common occurrences and they're really accentuating right now for the planet because the veil is lifting, as many of the listeners that you'll be attracting
Yes.
understand to a degree. Like we're more sensitive. We can feel these changing energies of Mother Earth, who is wanting to hold us in its embrace and help us help the planet. But we have to help ourselves. And so our number one thing that loss and grief has taught me is that my pain and my sadness needs to keep coming up to the surface. And it wasn't until my loved ones transitioned, I was really upset. The spirit signs happened, and thank gosh for mom. Mom's with me. Thank gosh for dad and Rob starting this off, because it's because of you two that I now do what I do now, because they directed me in an area of curiosity and how can I feel better and what's happening spiritually. So spiritual church, and I'm talking to a medium, and I'm talking to a medical intuitive who could work on my body and see what I'm getting, psychic readings. I mean, doing all the things that I do now in a way. It's what I do now as
How
a spiritual
funny.
coach. I needed that for me, because when we're growing our skills, we need to keep healing ourselves.
Something that you just touched on was what's going on in the world in terms of the unveiling and all of that. I'm so glad you did bring that up, because I kind of just want like your feelings on everything, whether or not like you can take this in whatever direction you like. If you want to talk about like what your understanding is a little bit more in depth about what's going on, or if you just have like um just either
Support.
yeah, support or
I
advice, or and like, but this can either be a very like 3D conversation, or you could take it to a spiritual level. We can talk about what's going on spiritually. I mean, whatever. There's so much going on. There is so much going on that it can be taken in a number of different directions. So, but yeah, I would just love your thoughts on everything.
what spirit is calling me to do right now is to bring through, touch on that a little bit, but to bring through how to help ourselves through
Yeah.
this. I think that's what I often, people reach out to me and said, will you do a psychic reading? Or I go, don't do psychic readings.
Mm,
I can channel for you to support you to help yourself through your grief and loss,
yes.
through navigating the energies of what's going on. Because I'm going to tell you, Ellie, I don't know.
Yeah, right, right.
I don't know.
And honestly,
We
from what I've heard, like scientifically, like speaking to physicists, it's interesting because they were saying how a psychic, when they're giving um when they're telling you what they're seeing, that is that is that is reality, that is a truth, that is, but there's so much changing, there's so many possibilities, that is what's true in that moment. That's what
yeah.
the energy is leaning towards in that moment, but that can change. So we really shouldn't even be focused on that. It should be focused on everything you're saying, how to get through all of it.
You are so on the money, because in addition to what you just expressed, or a side note, is then we add on our perspective,
Mm,
because we're going to have a different perspective from our viewpoint, from our lens, broader lens that, brought us together
shout out
from
Google.
our viewpoint, right? Crystallize your vision. I mean, I'm just saying the name of the program, but it's even, what is that? Because you see what I'm saying? Like, we're in the moment, we're crystallizing our vision. In the moment, we're seeing through our lens. So the perspective is going to change from your experience to my experience, and through your lens of what you've lived through, and through how you're having the experience of the energies of the changing. But what is so rad, as you said, the energies, everything is changing. There's so much transition, and we could come from a 3D perspective, 5D perspective. But being that I'm not the scientist, I'm the feeler. I think the best is to talk about whatever through your lens is going, that you see is going on in the world, or that you're starting to interpret, or you're listening in to the forecasts from many astrologers, channelers, psychics. You're going to hear maybe a common theme,
Mm,
but also you're going to come away going, I still don't know.
mm,
And that to me is Lori Ladd, actually. I love Lori Ladd. Listen to her. she talks about untangling,
Mm,
and or she has a show she titles Untangled. But I really feel like that word is coming to me right now. That's why I'm bringing up the word, is we're being unraveled,
mm,
untangled, and we're being called to be really keep coming back to how can we support our body and our heart coherence, which is like our alignment, our calmness. There's a lot of things happening in people: high blood pressure, anxiety, ADHD, overactive depression, totally like just totally we don't know where our next, like why our career is changing, why we're being pulled away, we're going a hermit, all of these things that could be happening to you. The number one thing is to be in your present moment, because the more you love yourself and can breathe in, that was my lifesaver, the
mm.
breath.
Yes.
When I deep dove years ago into this curiosity spiritual work, I landed in a program called Shambhala. And it was a community, group, my mentor and teacher. I'm not going to use the word guru or anything like that, because I don't see people that way. But when I was little, when I was younger, in my 20s, in pain, I just saw him like, wow, he knows what he's doing. But we have to let the veil is thinning, our intuition is expanding. Conversations down the street now are the stuff I've been talking about like 20 years ago,
Yes.
when people didn't know what to say to me when I started asking them these things, in my circle anyway. So again, my perspective, my current circle. But now everybody's talking about
Mm,
healing and how can I feel better and how do I handle all. And we need to take care of our body. So for me, it's about going to the body and what can we do to just be in the present moment as much as possible, just as Eckhart Tolle would say,
yeah.
and the power, and be in the power of now, and be with earth. Because the more we can be present and the more we can allow and let our sadness, our trauma, our rage up, that's what has to happen
Yeah.
if it's there. If
Gotta
there,
come up.
it's, you know,
Yes.
yeah,
It's got to. I mean, it doesn't have to. You can
you can keep holding on to it.
holding
Right.
on to it, but if you want to feel differently, you got to get it up and out.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And totally. And that's what I do for my clients and for those who are drawn to connect with me is I just share. I share and teach through my own lens, my own perspective, because these are my not to say they're for you or not for you, or any other person's way is better or less than mine. My approaches is based on what I know
You know,
works.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
makes so
When
much.
at first it was for me. At first it was like, well, what's worked for me? So when I started my practice, when I started, it was rebirthing, breathwork, somatic healing with intuitive counsel. That's how I started,
I love
in the
it.
living room with my clients
Mm,
who found that they were an AA, they were alcoholics, not they did the AA program and the 12 steps and they did all of this, and they reached a point they needed more.
yes.
And that my first clients that I brought through, that I work with, I saw them 1 day a week for 10 weeks. Well, I brought him through the deep dive, rebirthing breath work, in and inhale, exhale through your mouth, through your heart, your gut, your heart. He emoted, he released. I held energy for rage, sadness, crying, guilt, shame, didn't matter. That's how I got trained. That's how I got started. I went through releasing my guilt and shame and crap over 3.5 years, and I was just a little bit better. I'm
Yeah.
still today, I'm a little bit better. I got a lot in me still, lots of
Yes,
healing still,
we
but
all do.
we're all good.
And,
Yeah.
and what you're doing with it is so beautiful. And I think it's so much of, I don't think we should or shouldn't be doing anything necessarily. There's a lot into that. But um the way you are not only taking your grief, transmuting it by learning different ways to heal, you're then taking that and then helping others with it too. And it's just, to me, it doesn't get better than that. Like that is the way, if you ask me.
I didn't understand why I was feeling the way I felt all these years. And
Yeah.
it's then, as you know, this is a lifelong work. We know this, it's
Yeah.
lifelong.
Yeah.
But the more we dive in and honor, we're honoring by feeling, by feeling, we no longer ignore what we're
Mhm.
holding down. We
Yeah.
take responsibility, kind of like the bull by the horns. And I always say to my clients, if you want to let something go, you have a pattern, whether it's an addictive pattern or it's you've been through abuse sexually. I mean, I've worked with people who wanted to take I've had clients who want to take their lives. I mean, not so much anymore. It's not the conscious level that are folks that are drawn to me. But I
Yeah.
have literally work with clients who came in and they have, cuts on their wrists. They try to take their life. And they say, I don't know if there's any hope.
Mm.
And I got them into their body and they released things that they had held on since childhood, past lives, the Indian, I'll say not indigenous, but from India
Uh-huh.
background, and all the culture and all the pain that the families put on who he could date and who he couldn't date and I mean, he just wanted out of his skin, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
we can need now where you're not in that place, like, if that's not you, like, that's great. But like, as you're doing life, as you're building your business, as you're growing your family, as you're recovering from the loss of your husband or, your daughter, um, we need this cycle of helping hand.
Mhm.
And so I'm just so honored to be able to like offer modalities, a sounding board, and channeled guidance with spirit through me to you. And one of the reasons I think my clients like to work with me, whether like for most of the years it was sort of in person, the in person work.
Uh-huh.
And now I can also do this online. But
Yes.
why they would is that they could be seen
Yes.
without being judged.
Mm.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
being, and then when you take that load off of the pressure we put on ourselves,
And it is a
we
load.
surrender. So, you know what? This is really important. If you guys are someone who is feeling the energies of the planet, or we'll say the planet, the cosmos, the politics, whatever is your thing that distracts you, the greatest thing you can do is to turn that into inward, right? And take some time to explore that those the feelings, the interests, the things that are populating, but you're just not sure how to go there. It's really important because on the planet, you have to take care of you. And that's what Mother Earth really wants for us. It knows how to regrow itself,
Yes.
right? It knows how to replenish, but we're needing to catch up with learning how to replenish our soul.
Mhm.
And everything happens through the heart. This is way more powerful than here. So hearing spirit actually comes through the heart. What you're storing inside, and you don't even know why. Why am I so stagnant? One of my clients yesterday, she is in the program, Crystallize Your Vision. And she literally, when I first met her, she had a separation from her husband. I think she was divorced at the time. She was in the marriage far too long. She had given, given, given to all the kids. She had given like a workaholic to her well, we'll just sort of say the company she worked for was authoritative that helps run the cities.
Mhm.
And she also was in so much not living her truth that she had to have a lung transplant.
Wow.
She was only in her 50s-ish.
Wow.
Yeah. Lungs represent grief
Mhm.
and
Wow.
more, breath of life and everything. But like she was in so much pain because she was living for everybody else. And so when I met her, she found me on my small TikTok channel that I just started. I don't even I use TikTok, by the way, so you can visit me on TikTok or Instagram, but Facebook, YouTube is where I love to live. But like, she sees me on TikTok, and what drew her to me was a video where I'm filming in the dark on top of one of the hikes that I do. And I'm talking about spirit or something. And she's so fascinated because it turns out she lived in that city and she'd
Wow.
always wanted to hike that hike, but her lungs, right?
Ah,
So she reaches out to me and through the TikTok and she says, I'm interested in your discovery call. Anyways, fast forward, she worked with me in person a couple of times. She drove to my city and I took her through the process with the breath and the intuitive guidance and my energy healing work. And she's in one session, I think she had two, but she told me that she went to the doctors. She told me she had never breathed like that in her life, let alone since the lung surgery. It was 18 months after she'd had her lung surgery, and 18 months later, she worked with me and in this breath work, deep dive, emotive emotion, she released things. She opened up her heart, she opened up her lungs. Her lungs got so much more operational that when I could read a testimonial and pull it out somewhere, but like, because I can't remember the detail of the numbers, but basically, at the time that she met me, her lungs would have been fully operating the new lungs as good as they could get. That meant a certain percentage. She got like 20% more after we worked together by using the
that,
power of the breath and the release of the emotion. And she literally to this day, like, can't believe how that she went back to the doctors and I forget what the number was like, but it shouldn't have happened. They go, that doesn't happen. They just said they didn't know what to say. They just said, well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. So she literally had such a great result in her one-to-one session with me that she joined our program.
wow, that's incredible.
And
Wow,
she became a friend of mine too, actually, which is kind of
that's
neat.
even more beautiful.
Yeah, just like I just so blessed. She's been a client of mine, but she also there was a connection, you know?
Yeah, of course. And that does absolutely I mean, anyone that I've spoken to on here, they'll all say, I may not be your cup of tea. And that's how it is for everything. It's just like going to the doctors, and if you don't like your doctor, find a new one. It's just like going to a therapist. If you don't like your therapist, find a new one. And you will know. I mean, just like you were saying with this woman that just heard that one video. I mean, you know when you know you know and I just think that's important to share because it is easy to get really discouraged, um especially if you're reaching out to someone for like the first time and you haven't seen like
Yeah.
haven't had a spiritual mentor or anything along those lines. I mean,
Hmm.
it can be very overwhelming, and I
Yeah.
just my advice is just stick to it. It's just like shopping for a new car or anything else. You're gonna
Yes.
vibe with what you vibe with, and you will find someone. There's amazing help out there, clearly.
Yep. And to try, and what you're saying is so spot on because by trusting your heart that
Yeah.
you were led to that, like this woman was trusted because she could go to any other healer or person. First off, use the breath as often as you need right now because you're going to feel like a lot of us is lost.
Mm.
You're not lost. You're being unraveled to be renewed. And if your body is needing you to be a hermit, is needing you to get some extra healing, is needing you to pause a little bit on the way you think you are going to grow your business or the way that your experts tell you to, this is about trusting yourself. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm going through a redirection and I can feel that I do not know yet. Remember we talked about the unknown?
Uh-huh.
I actually don't consciously know.
Yeah.
I'm admitting to it now because uh, I was trying before to keep pushing something that wasn't I wasn't feeling like it. I couldn't comprehend, why can I not do the things that I used to do?
Mm.
And talk to the experts on this one, but your chemistry, your makeup, your energy, your cells, everything is changing in you. And we're going to be attracting things to us through the energy more and more and more. So if you're exhausted, love yourself, guys. If you're anxious and you're overwhelmed and you need to come back to yourself, I would love to share an example of the breath.
Yes.
Okay, that
Yes.
that everyone can take with themselves. Yeah. Now, I'll show you both of them if you want to go short and go longer. But if you just want to calm your like the parasympathetic system, you want to calm yourself because you know you need to center, you literally can do it with repeated cycles of inhale and exhale through your nose. Inhale to the count of 4. For example, inhale to the count of 4 or 5. Starting right from, your belly through your heart. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And just breathing in a long breath through your nose, holding it at the top if you want to briefly. Dr. Joe Dispenza loves doing that one. When you exhale, let it go slower and longer. So if you're breathing into the count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale to the count of 5. Bring it down slower. You do a few cycles of that, either just simply to reset and to come back to your heart. Only take you a minute or so, or even just a few seconds if you want to do a couple cycles. Or if you want to prepare for the longer every day, every morning, it's a really great thing to use the inhale, exhale 4 or 5 breath in and out through your nose. Then use the rebirthing somatic type breath, which is through your mouth. So it looks like this, everybody. When you get into it, once you're calm, you're gonna, one hand on your belly and maybe your left hand on your heart. And you can breathe in from a quick little breath through your belly and then your heart, and then a long exhale. So it'll be like, this is the breath with the right support, because as you start to do the inhale and exhale through your mouth, your vibration is going to raise, feelings might raise, sensations, even discomfort can raise, but you just start it a little bit slow and it will activate you in the morning. It'll kind of get you going. If you feel like you don't have the right support, then make sure you connect with another breathwork facilitator or someone like myself. You can reach out. But that is something that can really help you clear your energies. And this reset is what I want people to have, simple tools so that you can navigate this changing landscape. That's what I do. That's what I'm here for. That's what I've gone through. But I help you navigate grief, loss, self-doubt, overwhelm, and a confusion of your business, your life, and re-navigate it and have the tools to do that for yourself as you trust your intuition and you grow your connection with spirit, and your own mediumship comes through that. So